Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. I have with me Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar after a few weeks, and we're going to talk about a slightly different way of looking at China. We're trying to understand China as to how its culture, its religion continues still under CCP, which does not believe in religion. And to take a look at this, we have to understand China a little bit more in depth. And who better than General Ravi Shankar to share his thoughts on what he thinks about what is happening inside China today. Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar and thank you. And it's a pleasure to be on PGurus channel once again.
Thank you very much, sir. The pleasure is all mine. So, General Ravi Shankar, your understanding of China, it's a 1.1234. We don't know exactly how much billion people, and however much hard the CCP may try to harnify the complete country, people have still resisted. People have continued to believe in what they have been believing, their ancestors have been believing. So help us understand China a little bit more. You can go back in time to however long you want. You wrote some excellent pieces on this in Gunner Shot. Viewers, please go and read those articles because I don't think anybody else has done a more thorough evaluation, because General Ravi Shankar in one of his articles is going back 2,000 years. 2,000 years of China. I don't think we all know about Yuan Sang coming here, Fahian, and the name China came because of Emperor Qin who built the Great Wall, blah blah blah. But the complete perspective you've written through some of your articles. So, sir, take it away and regale us with how you see China.
Thanks a lot. Before I start on China, I must tell the viewers that Mr. Sri Iyer did a great thing the other day. I requested him for assistance to a girl child who could not afford her education, and he readily agreed to pay an entire month's entire year's school fees, and that's a great thing, sir. Thank you once again. And in fact, this is my passion. Whatever money I get out of these appearances and things like that, I put it into educating girl children who cannot afford an education. Well, let's leave that and we'll look at China. I mean, we have to fundamentally understand that China is a civilization. It's a civilization. It's one of the few great civilizations on earth. And they've had some tremendous religious and, what shall I say, cultural traditions which they've carried down through the ages. It's a different thing that we in India, where we have many religions, many castes, many races have intermingled here, and every 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers, a dialect changes. We are a different lot altogether. But whereas in China, the fundamental ethos, the traditions, and the cultures are the same. By nature, the Chinese are very religious. I mean, their religion is different. It could be Taoism, it could be Confucianism, it could be anything, right? But they have had the religion. The Buddhist religion made a lot of impact on them. So did the Islam. After all, one of the great emperors was Kublai Khan. The court of Kublai Khan was one of the best courts in their, history and civilization. Genghis Khan conquered most of China. And you see that they've also accommodated other great religions. They've also accommodated Shintoism from Japan, right? So there is a great mix. There's a lot of spirituality in the society. There's a lot of religion in that society. And it's traditional. Just like it's there in our societies, wherever we are and whichever area we are. And that's also the it's almost the same in China. Their Han population, if you see, is by and large confined to the area between the the sea coast, the eastern sea coast, and the Great Wall of China, right? That signified where the Han population or the real Chinese, as you understand them today, exist. The areas, outlying areas of Mongolia, Xinjiang, and Tibet, which they have all usurped over a period of time, uh, not really Chinese. And these places have their own religion. Like Xinjiang has Islam, you have Buddhism flourishing in Tibet. These areas have had a tenuous relationship with the mainland China and their emperors. When the empires were strong, these areas were under those empires. When the empires are weak, these people had their own government and all that. That is why you see this duality in Tibet. Some people say Tibet was never under China, but many people say Tibet was part of China, and that's how the Chinese today look at it. And the relationship was defined by the British as one of suzerainty, right? The Chinese flag, when it was strong, flew in Tibet. When the Chinese flag was weak, the Tibetan flag flew in Tibet. That's how it was. But you leave that out. China was a very religious society. Along with all these religions, Christianity made inroads into China when the Britishers and the Americans brought uh, Christianity through the missionaries. So you find a whole lot of areas, more in the eastern belt, the seacoast belt, where the businesses and the commerce of the American and British missionaries, and even Portuguese, Macau is Portuguese area. All these missionaries brought Christianity also. So there, you see a major blend of Christianity also within China. But all this got normalized or subjugated, call it what you may, through the communists who believed in atheism, and they still believe in atheism. Now, I would say they completely capped religion for good about 30 to 40 years. 47, 49, 49 was when China became independent. And from then till around 2000, religion almost disappeared. I mean, when I say disappeared, it disappeared from the public. But people were still religious. The Chinese are religious. Many of us make the mistake of conflating the Chinese people with the Chinese government. They're two different things, right? And that is something which most of us have to understand when we talk of China. So when you see the history for about 50 years, 1950 to say 2000 approximate, religion or anything like that was subdued. The revival came through this Falun Gong movement. Falun Gong movement was a non-violent movement based on spirituality, where people in the that was when I first started studying about China. People would come, sit down in open, and their form of protest was just keep sitting like something like what Mahatma Gandhi did, Ahimsa movement, sit down and pray. What could the Chinese do? Right? And then that was also the time when the Chinese themselves, the society was changing, their economy was changing. Deng Xiaoping wanted more openness, and then religion made a comeback. And the Chinese government today allows religion. It's not as if it's a totally atheistic society. They allow people to go ahead and practice their religion, and quite openly. You have in this Hui area a lot of Muslims. Of course, Tibetans are there quite a bit. There are a lot of Christians also as part of today. A lot of Chinese are Christians. There's no embargo on any religion today in China, but it is controlled. You can't get away. You can't. You don't have movements like they are in, say, India or in Pakistan or other Asiatic countries, where religion rules and runs the government. You don't have something like the Sharia. All that is out. Religion is allowed, but not in politics. So to that extent, one has to commend the Chinese for having, segregated politics, government, and everything official from the religion, which is personal and confined to your own beliefs. Going forward, will this change? That is to be seen. That's a challenge, and that's something which we could talk of. We could talk of in terms of their economy, in terms of the way they're going up in the power structure of the world, or for that matter, their society is aging. And all of us know that aging societies and aging people tend to be more religious and more spiritual, right? So if say in about 10 years to 15 years, 30% of China is going to be over 60, naturally something has to revive. Culture, religion, tradition has to revive. So how this will interact with the other wheels which are in motion in China is an interesting aspect. Yeah, we can take the discussion forward, Mr. Shreya.
Thank you so much for setting the stage, General Ravi Shankar. Now, Falun Gong is considered to be Buddhist, and they actually came in the news during the recent decade for the wrong reasons. And that is that their organs were being harvested because China had a certain clientele which preferred to have people who had good eating habits. I mean, they wanted two types of organ harvesting. One was Uighurs, because there were some clients who wanted only non-pig meat eating people, meaning one of their own.
Yeah,
But so see, this really is sad that today there is Falun Gong, there is recognition, but it is being recognized for the wrong things. How do you see this thing? Do you think China is going to dial down this organ harvesting market, or do you think it's going
no,
to
no.
continue?
We have to understand. You just organ harvesting is one part of the story. There are other issues. We'll not get into it. But you have to look at China from one point of view. They're very transactional. There's nothing religious about them, right? Uh, and organ harvesting is there almost everywhere. You to babies, they have a problem of brides. They don't have enough people, enough girls marrying today. In any case, they have a gender inversion with males outstripping the number of females every year. So they're even bride trafficking into China. So when you leave that out, okay, but they're very transactional. So there's nothing to whatever they're doing is nothing to do with religion. It is to do with the market. If the market demands a particular type of a person to be harvested or certain religious or a cultural strain to be touched, they'll do it. There's no emotion involved, and there is. Let me also put it across. I don't think they have a idea to touch a particular set of people only on things like that. It is transactional. What does not come is how many poor hand people they are also harvesting with. So we don't know that, right? But be rest assured, they'll not change. Okay, that fundamental uh, cruelty of the Communist Party will prevail.
Now, if you talk to a Chinese person, maybe 15, 20, 30 years ago, they would always say that India is Punya Bhumi because that is the land of Buddha, and that we would like to come visit the country at least once, and we would like to die there. This was something that used to be very commonly mentioned. Now, with all the things that are happening inside the CCP itself, there's a fair amount of churn going on. I don't know how the outcome is going to come out. How do you think China is going to be 10 years from now? Your thoughts?
Uh, it all depends on how the politics and the economy of China goes. I would say economy. If the economy, they're able to, if look, China has got a major problem. It wants to get rich before it gets old. Getting old is a certainty. I mean, it
True.
is, when I say getting old, it is aging at a pace faster than any other country in the history of mankind today. Right? They say that in the next 8 to 10 years, China will start resembling Japan, less its riches. So that transition is important. If China becomes old and doesn't become rich, right, there's a social problem. And if that social problem is not handled well, we don't know what will happen to the CCP. And if you take the historic, uh, you know, timelines, in the olden days, each dynasty was 200 to 300 years. If you look at it today, the Chinese Communist Party has existed already for 100 years. They're going to have the centenary this year. They've been in power for most of the time. How long will this last in that dynastic evolution? What are the socio-economic changes which are going to come because of this aging? Will China continue to be an autocratic nation under the Chinese Communist Party, or will someone replace it? Okay, maybe the Chinese communists won't go away. They might continue for another 50, 100 years, maybe till the end of the century, right? But how will they handle this transition in age? And with the age, like I said, spirituality, religion, culture, all these will come back. How will they handle it? This is one part of the story. The second part of the story, since you touched upon Buddhism, look, the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, is 87. It's only a matter of time after all, whenever he passes away to the other world. Who's going to be a successor? The Chinese are already manipulating to get rid of a successor. The number 2 Lama, Panchen Lama, they've already nominated a successor earlier. They got into problems, but they've got over it by their methods. They are already muzzling the Buddhists in Tibet. Right? So there will be problems on that score. So they're not going to be religious. But how will this, and the Dalai Lama's succession will be an international issue. How will this be handled? How will this get, transported or impinge on other religions and other issues as China is aging is a question mark. And there's also a view that China has economically also peaked. Right? I'm getting very, very, very diverse issues into the frame. Okay, it might sound confusing, but that's how it is. 3 months back, I read an article by a Chinese where he said the day when China is going to overtake America economically is not getting closer, but getting farther away. Last month, I heard Mr. Kevin Rudd. Kevin Rudd was ex
Prime Minister of Australia.
Australia, and he's a Chinese scholar. He heads some Asia Pacific Society and stationed in China, and he speaks fluent Mandarin. He's authority on China. He made the same comment on the same argument which I'm now trying to give. That it's very doubtful if China can cross the GDP of USA, and even if it does, I mean, it's just a number, because the other fundamentals or the other constituents which of the GDP in terms of people, their livelihood, their everything will not go up. It might go down. Look, GDP is useless if it doesn't, uplift your life and my life. Okay, so China's got all these problems, and China is on the verge of a transition. I mean, if you put all these issues together, next 15 to 20 years for China is crucial in terms of the transition. And that is why, I mean, look, it is not what I am saying, they feel it. They know that there's a transition in China en route. And that transition, now if I fast forward it to today, has been uh, also fast forwarded by the pandemic. It has also been fast forwarded by this Ukraine war. Now I've got you from religion to Ukraine war. These are all factors which are impinging on China's transition. How this transition goes will have a major impact on Chinese society. And that will dictate whether the Chinese communists can survive or not. We also have to understand that the Chinese Communist Party itself is going through a transition. The years of the Deng Xiaoping and the third person I'm forgetting, these people
Zhang
propagated an open
Jiaming.
society.
Yeah.
Jiang Zemin. They propagated an open society, right? And they were getting to the center. But Xi Jinping has taken them to the hard left. Right? He's brought back the state-owned economy, SOEs, right? State-owned enterprises. They are there today, the harbingers, or rather the major parts of the Chinese economy. The private sector is beginning capped. The tech sector has been wiped out. We all know that, right? And this virus has not come under control. So they are in a transition. In this transition, they become more militaristic also. So that adds more, instability to the system, because a military is going to suck your resources, and if it's not put to use. So there are a lot of moving parts in the Chinese society and firmament. So it'll be actually very interesting to see where China goes, say in 15, 20 years from today.
Yes,
And in
indeed.
my own,
And
if I may add one sentence, if
please.
in my own view, I've been studying. I've been studying China for about now 25 years, right? Maybe about 30 years back. 30 years back, it was more military in nature. About 25 years back, I started studying China and holistically. A lot has changed. A lot has changed. And my own view is that China has peaked. And from here on, it's going to go downhill. How fast, the rate of this descent is going to be interesting.
Yes, indeed. And some interesting observations that come out of China for the computation of GDP. Someone told them that as long as you keep running bullet trains from place A to place B and place B to place A, it doesn't matter how many people are using those bullet trains. But as long as you do this thing, you can count that towards GDP. And they have some very interesting metrics like this, with which they have kind of bumped up the GDP. In fact, there was a point when Leki Chang, who's supposed to be the real guy, he's the prime minister, he said that don't count this for GDP, count how many vessels are leaving the ports of China, and that should be your GDP. A sensible point. But the whole thing is, very delicately structured, General Ravi Shankar. I've had a hangout where people told me that they go to an ATM to withdraw 100 yuan notes, and one guy withdrew 500. Four of the notes had the same serial number. So
Right.
their currency has lost all meaning. That is why nobody takes renminbi seriously at all. So with all these things, how the heck are they still able to stomp about all over the world, sir?
See, let's not get into one odd experience and generalize it. The fact is that China has morphed from nothing to something. It has grown at a tremendous rate. When I started, say 97, 98, and 99, in fact, when I was doing my dissertation and during the higher command course, our GDP was approximately the same. Let's put it in I'll put it in a different context. At that time, if movement from one place to the other of a truck took 10 days in China, it took 3 days in India and 1 day in USA. That was the difference. Today they are at par, USA and China. So obviously their GDP has grown. I mean, whether whatever they do otherwise, and we've remained there. I can give you this thing, notwithstanding our roads and connectivity and this and that, quadrilateral, etc. We remained there. Our items move at the same speed from then to now because the volumes have increased. So their GDPs have grown. But the problem is that they're fixated on this growth in GDP. At the same time, you have to commend the fact that they have almost taken most of the people out of poverty. I mean, that's a fact, right? Absolute poverty doesn't exist in China. There are poor people in China, there's no doubt. There might be a few people who are in poverty, there's no doubt. But like I said, the next 10-15 years is important. Can they handle all this? Will they become a second-rate Japan because of an age society? What will be the effect on people? What will be the effect on minorities? Because the segregation between the Han and the minorities still exists. Right? The minorities are definitely treated as second-rate citizens. Contrary to what people say, the Han themselves don't want to go and settle in non-Han areas. Neither will the Han encourage immigration into China. Uh, this is, you see, why has USA grown? Because of immigration.
Yes, yes.
In a lot of immigration into China, USA, they've kept the population young, they tap the best of talent, everything. China doesn't do that. So, will that society, which is almost segregated, uh, I'm not saying from business transactions, from cultural transactions, will it survive? A lot of pressures. Will it survive its own pressures of religion and aging? These are the issues which one has to see as we go ahead. There are no answers which I can give you also. Yeah.
Yes, yes, indeed. And viewers, I hope you like this program because we've taken General Ravi Shankar out of his military cocoon and we have looked at him looking at the world from outside of that as a China scholar, a person who has studied China. And I hope you like the results. And for me, I'm gobsmacked. I mean, I'm so happy that we had this conversation, General Ravi Shankar, because sometimes you have to take a look at you have to take a 360-degree view of your neighbor. I'm not talking about adversary is only what, 10 years, 2 years, 3 years. Before that we
Yeah.
were friends for thousands of years. So we're kind of taking that kind of a holistic approach. We're taking a step back and looking at the whole thing, and we have found some interesting things here. I don't know if you have any questions, maybe one or two, and then perhaps we can wrap up this program.
Yeah, sure.
First question, excuse me. Rohit Sharma wants to know who said China or India or Asia has religion? If they don't have religion, then what do they have? What consequence does that have in the way these societies work and function?
Well, that's, I mean, whoever said that the China or India doesn't have religion obviously doesn't know China or India. Our societies are based on religion. It is just that in our society, religion has flourished and continues to flourish. And at times it has flourished in the wrong direction, right? Whereas in China, it has been shut down by the communist wave. But religion is there. And despite all the communism, they've not been able to cap it. They've had to force, religion has forced people or the communists to accept it, right? And that is why, in fact, my view is that the Chinese society has progressed quite a bit at the base level, and their poverty has been eradicated the way it has been, not just because of the communist approach, because of the fact that they let religion also work for them. Maybe not overtly, but at some level, they've used religion. They've allowed religion to be part of the development process. We might not agree with it, but they have done it. So I think religion is a way of life for most people, right? Uh, some people more, some people less, but you cannot wish it away. So I think, I mean, this is something which many people don't get into, and we need to keep a watch on this.
So you made a telling point that as a country ages, they tend to be more spiritual, and that is happening not just in India, not just in China, but the world over. So, thank you, sir. Nagarajan Srinivasan wants to know how India was seen by ordinary Chinese people in the olden days.
See, when you go back into history, the point which Mr. Shriyar made is very pertinent. Through millennia, the Indian and the Chinese civilization never had a problem with each other. They only learned from each other, right? And they've always felt that this land, India, was a land of great learning and religion. And that is why when you see Fahian or Xuanzang coming, you see these people came to all the important places in India and took back knowledge from here. If you go to Nalanda and if you go to Bodh Gaya, you'll see that there's a Chinese pavilion where Fahian's journey has been put in a museum. Any Chinese who comes there has to go to that pavilion and all that and learn. So there was a lot of interaction, and there had to be interaction between India and China because you sent a religion across to them, Buddhism. Right? How much percentage took up is a different story, but it is there. The fact is that they saw India as a great place, and we saw China as a great place also. A lot of this mutual respect between these two civilizations was facilitated by the fact of the Tibetan landmass, which was unpassable at that point of time, or rather, passable only with great difficulty. This is a huge buffer which kept both the civilizations apart. Modernization, progress, everything, overcame the elements of the Tibetan plateau. Politics overcame many more things. So now you have the Chinese state and the Indian state sharing a LAC. Your cultural borders are far apart with a Buddhist Tibet in between. But your political boundaries are on the LAC, and you are at loggerheads with each other. So this conflict will be there. But if you look at it from a historic point of view, I think the Chinese did respect the Indian civilization and Indians as a whole, as a whole lot.
RedRabbit wants to know, is the territorial expansion of China directly correlate to its fear of economic collapse?
Oh, no, I don't think so. Let me put it up front. Why? Because if you go back into the Chinese history, not far back, just about, say, till they got their independence, or rather, till the communist government came into play, they reasserted themselves in areas which they considered their own. And that was part of our expansionist drive. They first took over Xinjiang or the Xinjiang, then they took over Tibet, then they took over the Inner Mongolia. And having taken over these, now they're looking seaward. They also took over some parts northeast of Manchuria, which is right. But then Vladivostok was supposed to be part of Manchuria, which is now with Russia. There's some issues there, right? So this expansionism was there even when they didn't have anything to fall back on. This 1962 war with China was rather the Chinese persecuted that war against India when there was their great famine on. People were dying. People were dying by millions. That famine, which lasted about 4 years, It's reputed about it is not reputed. It is estimated that 40 million people died, right, due to sheer hunger. There were even reports of cannibalism then. So, despite all this, they persecuted a war against us, prosecuted a war against us, and were expansionists. So, there's no economic collapse. It is in their nature to. Now that they're economically strong, they want to expand. It's just that.
Next question from Red Rabbit again. I've noticed that ghost cities is a growing anomaly in China. How can it build such vast numbers with no one living in them? Where is the money coming from?
I don't have an answer for that. You got to ask the ghost of the Chinese. One of them. I mean, this is a question which has perplexed, I think, everyone in the world. Right? I started hearing about ghost cities, say, about 20 years back. Today, you still see shows about these ghost cities. It's a bubble. One day it might just collapse. And that will be a problem for China. That will be a mega problem for China.
General Ravi Shankar, India is no better. You have ghost apartments now. You go to Mumbai, Bengaluru, or Gurgaon, huge metropolis, high rise, nobody occupying them.
See, look, I don't think we are at the scale of China.
China, okay.
Okay. We are not, and plus the pandemic has hit us. Let me put it up front. I have a flat in Chennai. Took it over just before the pandemic. No one would go there. No one would, it's just locked. It's a ghost flat. Hopefully, things as they revive, I should be able to give it on rent or do whatever, or go stay there, whatever. But our conditions are different from this. Vastly different. Here, individuals have put in their money to make these ghost flats as investment. There, the government has created these ghost cities. There's a difference between ghost apartments and ghost cities.
Thank you, sir. Next question, please. Chetan Shah wants to know, how can West turn a blind eye to Uyghur genocide? Right now, if they treat their citizens in Shanghai badly on pretext of lockdown, then imagine how they would be treating the Uyghurs.
Well, the West is not turning a blind eye. No one is turning a blind eye. What can you do about it? What can you do about the shootings which are going on in USA? School children shootings, gun laws. Can anyone do anything about it? The US people themselves are not able to do anything about it. And there's not the first shooting. We've heard, if you take the last 20 shooting, it's all on the same
elementary
lines.
Schools or schools.
Yeah, schools or public, innocent people. And half-crazed guys doing it. And it's loose gun law. So it is an internal problem and it is their problem. Yeah, we can pressurize them to some extent. The UN Human Rights Commissioner went there and she was told very clearly, don't lecture us. If something happens tomorrow, like people have accused us of genocide in Kashmir. Yeah, people have written hell of a lot, but we've done what we had to do for our nation. So they're doing it. It might not be correct. That's a different story. But how much can you do to prevent it from happening is a different story.
Next question from Sasanka Varanasi. Lieutenant General, sir, why can't all the armed forces use a similar platform of aircraft with customization to meet each service's need? It looks like there is no long-term vision for synergies.
This is a question which is totally unrelated to our subject today.
China, right. They are pulling you back into the cocoon of armed forces.
Well, I think we'll leave this out.
No, we'll leave it for. We'll do it another day.
Not that I can't answer it, but today we are on a different track. So
yes. Sorry, Shashank. Harry, IIT Madras, I guess. Why would the demographic decline of China weaken them militarily in short term, like in 10 years? Isn't Russia still a potent power feared by the NATO?
No, I mean, let me put it like, is Russia still a potent force? Russia has been found out in this war.
Yes, yes.
Everyone thought it had a very strong military, a professional military. They'll do hell of a lot. And Ukraine, which had almost nothing, was written off before the war started, is now caught the bear by its paws and not letting go. Okay, like they say in that Kung Fu Panda, that grip and its kadoosh. You know, Russia's in trouble. Same thing will happen to China, right? So, and see, one of the problems with China and this is a fact, with declining population is not many people opt to join the forces. They're conscript. What's more and what's worse, and this is a fact again, is that not everyone is able to meet their standards. China has had to dilute standards to put people into the armed forces. And if the Ukraine Russia war has taught us anything, it is that it doesn't matter what technology you have, it doesn't matter what XYZ you have, the man matters. The Ukrainian man mattered more than the Russian man in that war. Right now, it's debatable. Go back 6 months. What happened in Afghanistan? What did America do after 20 years with the best technology, the best armed forces, the best training, everything? All they could do in 20 years was replace Taliban with Taliban. So the man matters. And I'm worried today. We are trying to dilute our armed forces with this tour of duty. I've written a couple of articles on that also. Ultimately, war, politics, they're interrelated, that many people have said. But it is a human endeavor. It is not an endeavor of artificial intelligence or cyber or space. People have to do it. Just like people have to win elections. People have to vote and make politicians win, and that's how prime ministers and chief ministers are made. Same thing with war. People have to win wars. And wars are not won by technology alone. These are all aids.
Well, that was a fascinating hangout that we had with General Ravi Shankar. General Ravi Shankar, thank you very much, sir. We got to see you see a totally different dimension of you. Viewers, I hope you appreciate this. Please share this video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And if you thought that you found something useful in this, please feel free to donate using the super thanks button. And also, I noticed that only 10 to 12% of the subscribers are also clicking on the bell button. Because of what device you use, I'm told that merely subscribing doesn't notify you of all the videos. So may I request all of you to also click on the bell button. That way, for sure, you'll get notified of all these videos. General Ravi Shankar and I talked about this for a few days before we narrowed down on this subject. And it takes a fair amount of time, effort. And he is actually in Bengaluru on some other visit. And he has set aside time to talk to us, share his thoughts. So there is something that we would expect you in return for us. And it's not monetary. It is just spread the word. Thank you very much, General Ravi Shankar. And once again, looking forward to another engaging discussion in a very short, near future. Namaskar.
Namaskar and thank you.